Welcome to another episode of Rugby Lives Here. And last week we had Golwa, the youngest rugby club in Singapore, and now we will feature the oldest in rugby in Singapore, SCC, a historic club known for their football, for their cricket, and of course for their rugby. And we have Declan Martens, club captain and Singapore captain as well, as Henry Winter, who is the SCC Rugby president or conveyor?
Convenor is the
yes.
term, but the equivalent of rugby club president.
And so, I mean, SCC started as a club in Singapore before independence in 1852. When did rugby come into the SCC?
Well, Declan and I have been doing some research on that this morning to get to the bottom of it, and the short answer is no one really knows. So, working backwards in 1823, that's when William Webb Ellis famously picked up a soccer ball and ran with it at Rugby School in Warwickshire. 3 decades later, in 1852, the SCC is founded, and then 2 decades later, in 1871, the laws of rugby union are first codified and the Rugby Football Union is established in England. So it's hard to sort of make a compelling argument that rugby really began in Singapore before then, but there's certainly evidence of rugby being played in the 1880s. You know, merchants from the East India Company sort of bringing the game out here, and a lot of naval vessels playing against each other. There was a famous game of Scotland versus the rest played every St Andrew's Day, but for the SCC, the first match that we can say with confidence that happened is when we played the Selangor club from Malaysia in 1902 on the Padang and came away with a win. So,
doesn't surprise me.
Has been around for a long time.
It's been around for a very long time. Great history lesson as well there by Henry. For the both of you, starting with you, Declan, not too much history needed in this one. How did you start with SCC Rugby?
I actually joined the club as a cricketer when I was 14 years old.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, my dad was a big cricketer, so he got me playing cricket there first. I joined as a JSM, so junior sports member playing cricket, and after about 2 or 3 years, I realized I was really, really bad. I wasn't very good at all, and I didn't want to put my father's name to shame anymore, so I swapped over to play rugby under the Rugby Colts at the SCC as well, headed by Damien Pereira. So I started with him when I was probably maybe 16 years old, playing for them, and then a year later, I joined the Lions, which were our 4th team back then. In the men's league, and then I've been playing ever since until now.
You've gone through the ranks of the club.
Yeah,
it's fantastic.
I played in every single team except for the Growlers, which I'll hopefully play one day when I'm of age. You have to be 35 years old to be a Growler, so that's the next one to tick off, obviously, and can't wait to be playing for him.
Henry, you've been in Singapore for 6 years, so how did you get involved?
So I got involved in order to join the club, really. So and I realised the best way to do that is to take my rugby boot that had hung up and put them back on. So I resumed playing rugby again, as with Declan, started with the Lions, which was our 3rd grade at the time, and again had to work my way through the grades, but did it as a relatively old man. So, began the rugby journey again 6 years ago.
SCC has a great history and is a heavyweight in Singapore rugby, has provided players to the national team in the 7s and the 15s. Declan, you're involved in it as well. Why is there such a pipeline of players from SCC to the national team?
I think at the club we're quite fortunate to have such good players joining us already. We tend to have a lot of players from overseas that when they come through, they already play quite high level, where they're playing for, repping their country overseas and coming to Singapore to work, obviously, then they find the club to play for us. If not, some of the local boys as well, they've sort of played growing up, repping Singapore as well, playing age group stuff from under 18s up until under 23s and even the national team, and then playing for us. So, yeah, we have a good number of players that play national team as well, and hoping for it to grow as well. We got under 19s as well now that are playing under 19 level for Singapore. So that's just the start, and hopefully that will get even more in the future as well.
Do you find it when you're recruiting players, Henry, that it's one of the more glamorous clubs and you don't really need to kind of entice them or convince them to come over and join the club?
Yeah, I suppose we're well known as having, different to say Hong Kong, where there's about 8 clubs that have similar sort of facilities to us. We're really the only club in Singapore that has that. So, it's especially sort of people that are moving over from Hong Kong to Singapore, they find us to be a natural fit, and obviously it's a pretty iconic ground and clubhouse in the middle of the CBD. So it does help with recruitment.
Yeah, talk about the Padang. I mean, you have National Day parades that are held there. It's a special place in Singapore.
Yep.
What is it like to play there?
It's the best field in the world, without a doubt. I mean, for me, it holds a bit more sentiment, obviously, because I've grown up on that field since I was probably 2 or 3 years old by the time I was already running around there. So to me, it means a lot more than just like a big field. But obviously, like you said, it has so many historical memories on it. Just playing on it every time you walk out there, even just for training, you have to sort of pinch yourself and think to yourself, wow, this is amazing. You get to be on the best pitch in Singapore, even in Asia, probably around the world. And Yeah, I just get like grow a third leg really when we start playing there. For me, especially.
The first time you saw the Padang, what was your impression of it?
Well, the first time I recall seeing it was when I was just travelling through Singapore in 2011, and I made a choice to myself then, I'm going to join this club. So fast forward to 2014 when I moved up here, I joined the club and go out to my first training. I used to walk 800 metres from the office to the ground, get changed, do training, and then you walk back off the pitch and you look back over the city, see the cityscape, and you think, wow, this really is a pretty special ground.
Yeah, if you're in Singapore, the Padang is a place that you have to see at least once in your life. Declan, on to you, and you're part of the SCC Rugby Academy.
Yep.
It's part of the development pathway for the rugby players growing up the system. How important is that academy to the growth of SCC Rugby?
Incredibly. At the moment now, we've got under-17s that leads into under-19s that are now starting to play with our Lions, our Tangards, and our Prems team. Just this year even, we had one of our under-19 players who came to under-17s play in the Prems team alongside me as well. I used to coach him. So that's all the pipeline we have now. Maybe a couple years ago we didn't because we had under-16s. That was the biggest age group. But at the academy we have from under-4s up until under-17s that leads into our under-19s. So now we have this pathway where it's laid out for all these players. If they want to stick around and play, they can play for under-17s, play their 19s, and if they're good enough and they train hard enough, they can get into any team at the SCC. So it started out with, we had probably, 5 or 6 that played for Lions last year.
Yeah.
So that's a great number for us already, just from what we had before. And hopefully next year that becomes more and more. Well, obviously with COVID permitting, but we're looking for the number to grow every year, obviously. Whether they're local or expat, whatever it is, we're happy for them to keep playing.
Absolutely, and the under-19s, which is now part of our men's section, helps to really build out the pipeline from the academy. Previously, as Dec said, we had people sort of disappear and not sort of come through to the men's section, but it's really now a lot easier because Dec's one of the coaches, and a lot of our current players are also coaches of the under-19s. Then they're the teammates in the men's sections once we sort of build it out that way. So it really helps us sort of connect the academy to the men's section. Another issue is you have people going to do national service or going overseas to do university, but really we want to build a club where people have such fond memories that once national service or university finishes and they come back to Singapore, they think the first thing they think of is to rejoin the SCC and play rugby with their mates.
Definitely.
Was there a conscious decision at some point to, let's focus on youth and not just look at success of the main team, but also looking back and having that pathway? When was this decision made?
Well, I suppose the academy really grew it from strength to strength under the previous convener, Sam Sharp. He was really, pivotal in growing that out with other members of the academy committee. And it's just grown and grown. So I think, Dec, there's 800 kids now playing as part of the academy from ages, 3 or 4 right up to age 17. And it's not just boys, it's boys and girls. So we have a lot of girls teams as well. And hopefully that, that pipeline will build out that one day we'll have a women's rugby team as well. So very important.
We'll get into that, but SRU has assisted with the coaching in terms of Simon Mannix and Charlie Brown coming over to help out with the team. How has that benefited as a player?
I've started doing my level 2 as well, like coaching. So it's been handy as well because I think Sue works Coach Sue Jaime, he coaches us as our head coach. So he's been getting a lot of guidance from Simon Mannix as well. And I think it's just giving him a different directive of how to coach, what things to look out for, and sort of things what we can focus on as a team, because obviously we're not professionals. We sort of just train 2 or 3 times a week, spend a bit more time in the pub though, to be fair. But it's been giving us way more directive going forward, and we get to get more visuals as well. Like nowadays there's more technology involved, so you get more film, get to see yourself play. It's easy then for Sue and Matt Head, who is our other coach, to tell us, okay, this is what you did wrong in the game, this is what you need to tighten up on. I think that's one big thing that we can use and we're going to be using for the next few years just to get better, because we don't play or train that much, right? So it's going to give us a great chance to get better.
Yeah, you spoke about perhaps a women's team in the future there, Henry. You have a junior girls team at the moment. What are the plans? Can you share some information on a potential women's team?
Well, we've got nothing set in stone at the moment, and Dec and I can both agree that rugby is a game won by the forwards. So we have a lot of women and girls rugby players in the academy, and we've got a women's touch team. But really, we need to focus on ensuring we would have a pack that would be able to sort of match it against the pre-existing women's teams, and it's definitely something that's on our agenda to keep working towards.
Yeah, we spoke about the Padang and how special it is, and to play there, a competition that everyone looks forward to, well, every year, except for this year, I guess, is the SCC Sevens. Some great teams that come down. I'm going to go to you with the history question again. How did it all start?
Well, again, so it would have been in its 73rd iteration this year had it gone ahead. Apparently it's the second oldest rugby sevens on the planet, just behind Melrose in Scotland. So the cup that is contested is the Ablett Cup, and that was first contested in 1948. Back then it was mainly sort of local teams and sort of military and naval teams who used to compete for it. And then under a previous club legend, Len Foster, in the 1970s, he really tried to grow it and invite other clubs from around the world. So Palmyra and Perth and Cawsarina from Darwin, they came out to play, and they still come every single year. Then in the 1980s, it grew even more with a lot of teams from New Zealand. I read an anecdote that when New Zealand rugby clubs had poker machines in there, they could only use the revenue from poker machines to tour overseas. So that helped a lot of them get on the plane and come over here. And then in the 90s and 2000s, you had development teams from Europe and the United States coming out as well. And now it's some of the best rugby sevens you'll see on the planet. So Davita from Fiji, who typically win, played against Ponsonby, from Auckland, Dan Carter's old club. They met in the final, and there's been such incredible players that have come through. So it's no secret that Jonah Lomu played when he was 17, Tana Rumanga, Michael Liner from Australia, a young Rico Ioane more recently who plays for the All Blacks now, and Nick the Honey Badger Cummins. So we've attracted some fantastic players over the years, and we look to continue doing so.
Fantastic. And just give me some insight into the SCC Rugby side. And I know there's going to be a new format whenever competition does start. But in the old format, how many teams are there that competes in the top division and in the second division, and what is the kind of ranking there, Declan?
Of our teams?
Yeah.
So we have, at the moment, we have 3 main teams. So fourth including the Growlers, which is our vets team. So we have our vets team, the Growlers. You got to be over 35 to play.
Okay.
Then you have the Lions, which is our thirds. They play in the conference. And then you have our Tankards and our Premiership team that both play in the Premiership. So basically we have a third, second, and first team. Essentially, they're all basically one big club anyway at the end of the day. It's just what jersey you put on the weekend. Everybody comes down for training, and it's always very, very competitive at training. Yeah. It gets heated quite often as well, to be fair.
Absolutely.
Probably more heated than the games. Just because it just gets so competitive. Yeah. Don't know why, but it just gets incredibly competitive. All probably trying to fight for the jersey. But I think the past couple of years, I think the Prems haven't been pulling their weight. I think the Tankards have been, though. Tankards have been always up there as one of the strongest teams in the league, whether it's the Prem or the Championship as well. And the Lions this year, incredibly unlucky. They got to the final, lost in like extra overtime. And Brian Lim's first outing as a coach, and that was amazing for him to get them all the way there. And the Growlers are always fighting constantly. They don't train, but they're probably the heartiest men out there as well, and they always put up a fight.
There are 2 15s teams for SCC at the top. There's going to be a new league format. What is the ambition? Just to just conquer everything, I guess? Is that what's the motto for SCC?
Yeah, we want to win. Obviously, we want to win. The past couple of years have been disappointing, like I said before. And obviously, we want to be successful on the pitch, but we like to be successful off the pitch as well. Yeah. We do really good stuff with socials. You always try and get the boys around. Obviously, because of COVID nowadays, we can't really get more than 5. But beforehand, we used to have big days where we used to face another club. So just before COVID actually happened, we're going to play against Bucks. We'll have our Lions play against their thirds, our Tankers play against their seconds, and our Prems versus their Prems. And we're going to make a big day of it. It's called Ladies' Day. Invite all the wags across and to get under a tent and drink lots of beer and drink a lot of Pims and watch the games. Unfortunately, DOSCON Orange, whatever it's called, happened the day before, and we had to can it. But we still got out onto the pitch, played some cricket instead, just had a big day of it, got up into the Padang afterwards, into the restaurant upstairs, had a big drink up as well. So as much as we love to be competitive on the field, we love to then enjoy it off the field as well as a group and as a section, because I think that's what rugby is about, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, we've worked very hard on creating a culture that we're very proud of, and really trying to flatten the club out so it's club, team, player in that order. And there's no issue with someone that plays third grade or someone playing under 17s talking to anyone in our first grade and our Prems team. Everyone's really friendly and open for a chat, and that helps us get to know each other off the pitch, which helps us play together on the pitch. Yeah,
Declan made a good point. The socials is so important, especially in getting everyone together as part of a unit. What would be the identity of a club? I'll get both of you to chime in on this. Like, if you were to describe SCC Rugby, or an SCC as a whole, to a potential player, to try and convince them to join, how would you describe the club?
Oh, you might have to start off with this one, Henry.
Well, I suppose we thought a lot about how to sort of really create this culture, and now we've got so many players coming through the academy, under 17s, under 19s, right out into the men's divisions. Next year we'll have our 4th grade back, which is going to be a purely dedicated development side, provisionally named the Cougars, which are a historic side that we had in yesteryear. So just creating a really inclusive side, and it's, you know, if we wanted to put some catchwords behind it, sort of teamwork, unity, dedication, you know, getting out there, like any club, you get out as much as you put in. So we really encourage people to get involved, become part of it. You know, rugby is only a small part of a rugby club, really. I mean, there's the social aspect as well. A lot of expats like me that didn't know anyone when I moved to Singapore, you meet all your friends at the rugby club. But even bigger than that, we're a historic touring club. So we travel the world playing rugby. But for coronavirus, we were going to have our first long tour in 5 years, and we were going to go to Vancouver and Seattle. And we'd lined up teams to play there. You know, one of the teams were going to play HMS Vancouver, a Canadian naval vessel that had come down and played us on the Padang a few years ago. We were going to have a repeat fixture at their naval base and hang out with them and have beers after the game. So, you know, rugby is part of it. That's why we're all here. But, you know, the club is much bigger than that.
Yeah, Vancouver is a great place. Also, I've heard. So with COVID-19, you know, it has wreaked havoc on sports in general in Singapore. Particularly for rugby, where, you know, even in groups of 5, you're not allowed the close contact. How have everyone kept themselves engaged at SCC Rugby?
So I think for the first part of CB circuit breaker, obviously it was very tough you couldn't even leave the house or, you know, for exercise or anything like that. But recently we started doing more training at the Padang itself, obviously in our groups of 5. Coach Sue and Coach Matt have been doing really well to plan out these really tough physical sessions, mostly just fitness. And the main thing about all these sessions is, even though they only run for half an hour, they're super competitive because you're in groups of 5 against people in your certain position as well. So I'm mostly up against Henry most of the time, and he beats me in all the fitness drills. I'm chasing him most of the time. So we start off with doing Broncos as well, to just get a baseline of where our fitness is at. And everybody's every week saying, what's your Bronco time, what's your Bronco time, trying to figure out who's the fittest, who's the fastest, or who's the slowest. And then as the time goes by, every time you go down for training, every single sprint you do, you're racing that guy next to you. And then the next one, you try and beat him again and again and again. So even though, like, mentally you're just doing fitness, but you're leaving feeling accomplished because you might be beating that guy half the time. But usually if I'm against him, he's always winning. So I'm chasing dust most of the time, Henry.
Not at all. But, you know, it is bringing out that competitive spirit, which is part of rugby. Everyone sort of competes for spots, tries to play in the top possible team they can. And even as something as, you know, running up and down the Padang for 30 minutes twice a week, doing Broncos, which are pretty
disgusting,
pretty horrible things. You know, the first time I went out, I ran a Bronco in 6 minutes and 12 seconds, and I was furious with myself. So I competed against myself. I don't know how much quicker Deck is than me, but over a minute. And then, you know, you go out and you try hard and you shave 40 seconds off your time. And, you know, every week on the WhatsApp groups, publish list from first to, I think, 75th, you know, of the number of people that go out there. And, you know, some of our front rowers who play for our vets team, they're out there every single Tuesday and Thursday slogging their guts out. And, you know, I suppose circuit breaker and people getting a bit of cabin fever does help, wanting to get out of the house and go for a run and hang out with their mates in an environment which is permissible within the 4 walls of the rules. You know, it's been great, and we'll be fitter and better for it.
Declan, as a coach, how creative have you needed to be to make those sessions really fun for everyone when there's only groups of 5?
Yeah, it's definitely tested me as a coach. So I think before I got into this period, if I had like less than 10 kids for a session, I'd be thinking, how do I cancel the session? I just want to tell the boys go home. But I've definitely became a lot more responsible about my coaching as well, thinking about what we need to do, how to get boys better in just a smaller space, in only 5 people, what we can do to probably get the boys better, because at the end of the day, it's for them. It's not about me. It's all about how we get the boys to leave the session, telling themselves, actually, I got better at this skill today, or, you know, I could have worked on that a bit better for next week. So it's not just all about fitness. Obviously, at the club, we're just doing fitness because God knows when we're going to play again. But for these boys, they're still growing, 17, 18 years old, probably going to head overseas, maybe in the future to play. I want them to be able to leave the club and say to me, saying, you know, when I went to this club, I actually knew how to do this because you taught me how to do that, or I got better because you did this with me. And, you know, there's so many aspects to the game itself. So I'm quite fortunate. I have Dempsey as well to use for all this coaching. So I have massive space. We can get down up to 50 kids at one point if we wanted to. And getting groups of 5, I have a fantastic coaching team. Jay Heichel and Rob de Grice, they lead the under-17s there as a head coach, and they give so much support to it as well. So much thought goes behind every session now, instead of just rocking up going like, yeah, we'll do a bit of hands, do a bit of touch, whatever it is. Now it's thinking about, okay, for the first 10 minutes, we're going to do this. This is the outcome. Okay, how do we get that? How do we get the best out of the boys? And that's obviously going to lead probably into the men's team as well now, because everybody's learned what we need to do to get better, and everybody's going to get better and better every single time. So honestly, people say it's been really bad. I think it's actually been a good change, because it makes coaches a bit better as well.
Yeah.
Makes them be way more responsible about how they're going to coach in the future going forward.
Yeah, you can focus on each individual player more than you, you could have in the past.
Definitely.
And so you lead me into this. What are the positives you can take out from 2020 for both of you? Let's start with you, Henry.
Well, I suppose the great traits of patience and resilience. Everyone's been quite tested this year. And, you know, you look at something like a rugby club, the fabric of a rugby club, and, you know, is it robust? Is it going to stick together when people, you know, are forced to stay at home? They're not allowed to attend the club. You know, Stumps, our sports bar, isn't open still, which is a big part of who we are as a club. But, you know, we've lost probably 2 players, and we've gained probably another 20. So we've grown, and we've grown stronger, which is a great sign of the culture we're developing and really growing here. And then seeing, you know, these trainings with, you know, Broncos, which are absolutely bloody horrible. But Tuesday and Thursday nights, they're packed. We've got 2 sessions, and, you know, the field cut in half, people in their lanes running up and down, and loving it. So it has had massive positives despite all the adversity.
Declan, what about you?
Players are getting way more accountable, I think, because now they know they've got to come back fit and ready for whenever the season starts. So no hiding anymore. I think, like what Henry said, everybody's name's published on that WhatsApp list, no matter what. So you've got to be accountable. Whenever we get the green light, we're not going to mess around. No, that you never know when your last game's going to be now, because our last game was in February, which was highly disappointing, honestly. Like, I wish I could play that game over and over again every single day, but I can't. And it's not that I don't play rugby. I'm just told I'm not allowed to play. So I reckon boys have enjoyed the break to an extent, but now everybody's just super hungry. Once they get out there, be as best they can. And not just us, I reckon all the other clubs are doing the same as well. So it's going to be such a great start whenever we get back. Yeah, it's going to be a fantastic season when we start again.
I can't wait for the first game, because everyone's just going to go out there on absolute fire.
Raw rumble.
Rumble.
Absolute raw rumble.
So anyone who's watching us and watching this interview with SCC, if they want to get involved, as you said, it's open to anyone. Everyone out there. You're an expat, you're a senior, you're a Singaporean, anyone can come and contact. But how do they get in touch with SCC? Henry?
Well, there's two main ways. One, probably the easiest way is just go to our Facebook page, and you can send that page a message, and then me and a few others can pick that up and just get in touch directly. There's an email address, joinsccrugby@gmail.com, or thirdly, just call up the club and say you'd like to join, and they will put you in touch. So there's plenty of ways to do it, and obviously you don't need to commit to everything. Come and, you know, try before you buy. Come to a session, as we say, and obviously the marketing hasn't been that good in that we're doing Broncos and we've told you how awful they are. But, you know, you can come down, you can have a bit of a run if you want, or just simply meet some of the people, meet the coaches, meet the fellow players, and just try to see if it's the right fit for you. And, you know, you can have a beer and a meal there as well. So, you know, there's plenty of ways to get involved.
Yeah, so the rugby aspect, the social aspect. If you want to learn how to grow a fantastic mustache like the both of them, get in touch with SCC Rugby and they will sort you out. This has been a great episode. Thank you so much, Declan. Thank you so much, Henry.
Thank you.
Fantastic episode of Rugby Lives Here. We'll see you next Thursday.